Are you aware of the Georgia Guidestones?
Absolutely. And something happened to them a week or so
Wait,
ago.
wait a minute.
They kind of
What number? What number did they have on that Georgia Guidestone? We're talking about
that's
numbers. There's a
there's your number
number.
again. That
There's a
was a
number
manageable
that they want.
population for the planet. That was, eugenics or whatever you want to call it. That was the number, the target number, so that the planet could sustain itself and sustain the people on it. And that was, that's some scary stuff when you think about this. Somebody that's advocating that type of population control to get it to 5 billion people on the planet.
That's frightening. But I could see it. It could happen, man. I mean, it could happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the older I get, the more less of less of a suspension of disbelief. Because when I was younger, it's all this like that's just crazy talk. But the older you get, and the more you watch things happen, and the more you see things and experience things, and you start thinking, not only in here but in here. Your spirit man has to think about stuff sometimes too. I believe we're a trifold being. We're body, mind, and spirit. And if there's something out of whack in one of those areas, it can cause problems in the other or all the areas. But when you think about things with your mind and your heart and your spirit, you get a clearer picture, I think. And there's some stuff. There's some stuff that's gone on. There's stuff that's going on right now. And people, will laugh at you and make fun of you. Well, one that used to be a conspiracy theory, Operation Paperclip. After World War II, there was a conspiracy theory that the scientists here, the government here, brought over some of the biggest Nazi scientists instead of prosecuting them for war crimes and putting them in prison or executing them, put them to work. Well, I'll let you in on a little something there. My
They
dad,
took
even though
all
he's
their
from humble
money.
beginnings, way out near the Big South recreation area there on the Kentucky-Tennessee border, he was an educated man. He went to the University of Tennessee, ended up working at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Well, guess who he worked alongside of? Some of those German scientists that Operation Paperclip brought over. That I know in my heart 100% that happened. There was a kid that I went to school with. Now we had an odd mix there in West Knox County where I went to school. It's just across the lake, the river from Oak Ridge. So you had a mix. There was farm kids and kids with PhDs and rocket heads and scientists and things like that. Well, there was this kid that I became friends with. Had a German name. I won't name him. He's actually a police officer now in Tennessee. But I went home with him one day. He's like, come down into the basement. They had a family room downstairs. He's like, I want to show you something. Go in there. He goes to the back wall and pushes on the paneling, and a door opens up. And I'm like, I'm a Cold War baby. A lot of people had those bomb shelters in their basements and stuff back then. We didn't, but I knew people that did. I
I
thought,
was
okay,
gonna say
cool, you
no,
got a
Steve.
bomb
No, they
shelter.
don't, man.
Well, he opened it up and turned on the light, and there was the biggest collection of German memorabilia that I've ever seen. And I'm just marveling at all this, and I'm like, your dad sure likes his war relics. And he points to a uniform, a very high ranking in that regime uniform. And he said, no, you don't understand. He said, this is my dad's uniform. So he'd built like this shrine to his former military career in the basement of this house in East Tennessee. My dad knew his dad. They worked together where? Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Operation Paperclip. So see, that's one that people laugh at and say, oh, that never happened or that's just made up. I'm here to tell you it happened. Look into the Tuskegee experiment where they exposed a lot of folk to venereal diseases and things like that and didn't tell them about it just to see how it would spread and how they would react. That was another one that nobody believed, but now it's come out in the open. It's been proven.
Well, but
And that
come
was our
on.
own government doing
What
that.
amazes me about that is what amazes me about that. If I talk about the Tuskegee Airmen and the Tuskegee test, I'm just being, I'm just making up stuff. I'm just, that stuff. And that was something that really happened. Um, I want to ask you this one here, just because you went there, and I'm going to probably upset some people with this one here. This is not a good one, but why not? You talked about how we as Americans bought the Germans over here instead of treating them or prosecuting them as they should have been prosecuted. Truthfully, we as Americans, and I think when you deal with the Bushes, the Kennedys, come on, man, we were more than willing to take all of their money. We took all of their scientists. One of the things, I think, if we took all of that, then did we bring some of their demonic teachings over here with us?
I
Because
think
we
so.
did. I mean, Hitler was, it was known that he was in the process, he had made contact. So did
Yeah.
we take some of those demonic teachings in order to get to where
It
we
would
need to
not
be?
surprise me at all. And personally, I believe we did. I mean, the fruit doesn't fall very far from the tree, as they say. And if they were introduced to that and were used to that and heard that and worked around those principles, for example, look what's going on at Cern. Now, do you think that's purely scientific there? What's your thoughts on Cern? I'm going to ask you a question now. What do you think's going on there, buddy?
We talked about CERN. First of all, a lot of people, we have to watch. People are just now talking about CERN. When did we start talking about CERN? We were talking about CERN, what, 15 years ago?
Yeah,
I mean, did we
when it was
not did
just
we not
originally a
see
concept, that
did we
that don't
not see
sound
the
right.
video that they put out? The video that was 15 minutes long that I literally just sit here and I
Yep.
mean, I was like, I mean, and this was 15 years ago. I know it was 15 years ago. But now all of a sudden they're like, oh, they got this big old thing going on in CERN. Outside of CERN, there's the picture of the goddess of destruction.
Yep.
That's their
I think it's
emblem.
I can't remember if it's Shiva or Kali, but whichever
Shiva,
one is, it is
Shiva.
the
Yeah.
destroyer.
Okay. Their emblem is 666. Now,
Yep.
I don't profess to know what's going on behind those walls. I know what the emblem is. You know, I know a teaching that says signs and symbols are for those that are truly conscious.
Indeed.
Okay. Um, I think that they are trying to. I think they're trying to do exactly what they told us they're trying to do with CERN. And I think it's so ridiculous and it's so absurd that no one would believe it.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the goals of man is to do what? Be God.
Yeah.
And
That I
if
mean,
you
how far back? Remember the Tower of Babel in the Bible? That's exactly what they were trying to do, and you see what got them that time. God scattered them and confused their language because that was what they. It didn't come right out and say that, but that was the way I've always interpreted. We shall build a tower that shall reach unto heaven. They were talking about they wanted to be at least on equal footing with God, if not usurp Him altogether. And
and
I
what did
had a
God
theory
do
about
to him?
that. I spoke at a Conspiranormal conference in Nashville a couple years ago, and I tied together the Tower of Babel, the pyramids,
Mm-hmm.
UFOs, cargo cults, and several other things, and it made sense the way I'd put it together in my head. So that's my thing about the pyramids. You think about those people, they're building this tower, and then God scattered them. Well, you end up in the jungle somewhere, and it's like, how'd we get here? What's going on? Well, the last thing they remembered, they were building a tower. Okay, well, let's try to build a tower again and see if we can get back. So that's why I think you have these pyramids in other places in Mexico, South America, other places throughout the world that aren't quite as good as the ones in Egypt, but they're similar in construction. And that's just my theory, my opinion. But I think, if I did something and wound up in a place, didn't know where I was at or how I got there and couldn't understand anybody else, I might think, maybe we should try that again and see if we can get back. Your
Well,
mileage may vary.
that's well. Wait a minute. Okay, let's just break that down real quick, and let's just break that down scientifically. Okay, if you built a tower and you built the tower as high as you could build the tower, and you're goal of building the tower is reaching the Most High. Do you know what happens as you continue to get higher and higher in the altitude? Do you know what happens to hikers as they get higher and higher into the mountains?
Yeah, you get altitude sickness, and you can die from it. You get delusional.
You become disoriented.
Yeah.
You begin to babble. You begin to blah, 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 thus creating the Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. There you go.
We're trying
That's
to make
genius,
a
man.
great...
You are a legend and a genius. But in another way, and a lot of people, again, just depends on your beliefs. I believe, and this, I had a brother who was a minister, and I talked with him about this, about the paranormal and the supernatural. He said the way that works is what we know, what we consider the natural world around us. If you believe in the Bible, all this that we know, that we experience, was spoken forth out of the supernatural. So
Right.
then it makes sense when you think about it that way. We're measuring it by what we consider natural, but the supernatural is the origin of it all. That's where it all came from. So that one will stand you on your head if you think about that for a while.
Well, listen, I appreciate you and your time. I thank
Jimmy, it's
you
been a
so
pleasure,
much
man,
for talking to me. And I mean that. I'm so honored, Mr. Stockton, that you would just come on here. I mean, and you were just so gracious, just
well, thank you.
gracious, man.
And it was a miracle, a divine act of divine intervention. You had messaged me on Twitter. I don't ever check that Twitter account. I'm on there maybe once a month, maybe. And I happened to go on there today, and it said somebody wants to send you a message. So I opened up my messages,
Jesus.
and I thought, oh my God, how old is this? And I looked, and it had just been a couple of hours, and I just thought, wow, this is a sign. I got to get in touch with this man. I got to go on this show.
We didn't have a guest.
It just sometimes things just manifest, man. You got to go with it.
The guest that I wanted to talk about the 411. I wanted to talk about the missing people in the park. And the guest that I wanted, I really wanted him. He said, he heard the name of the show, JimSpiracy, and he said, I only deal in facts.
Well, see, I kind of said the same thing about our channel, but I'm willing to come on here and discuss any kind of theory with you because that's what it is. It's a theory until it's proven fact. But everything's not cut and dried. There are things that have irreproducible results.
Exactly.
That's the whole thing about the paranormal. You can't measure something that you can't get it to do every time. But that's our natural laws trying to measure stuff. But I think I know who you're talking about, and I respect the man and respect his research.
I'm not talking about anybody. I'm too new in the game to be trying to kick up some. I just felt some kind of way because I just had on the Chupacabra lady. Okay, now don't disrespect me, man.
I watched that episode. Lady. She is something else.
She's a badass. I mean, truly, and I mean, even with her story, I just found it interesting. Like, if you have a Chupacabra, what's the big deal? Why is the government trying to? What do you care about that? By the way, real quickly, in Canada, they just discovered a giant skull. They said it's a Bigfoot skull.
I've heard the story, but I haven't had a chance to look into it yet. Looks like you're going to show me here a large primate skull. Well, what other race of large primates do we know of? Was there some kind of great apes in Canada at one time?
The Nephilis?
No, that's a possibility. When the fallen angels
when the fallen angels
got with
came
the
down
daughters
and saw
of man. Nephilim, I hear that a lot as demons. You had a very interesting show there. Are aliens demons? I know some people that swear that they absolutely are. So that's, again, that's open to individual interpretation and conjecture and things. But uh, I could see that because I've never heard of them doing anything good per se.
And that,
And
that
a
and
lot of the
that's where we're
stuff, a
getting
lot of
to.
the cryptids. Now we cover, it's missing persons. That'll always be our prime focus. If we can bring one person home or give one family closure, we're doing what we set out to do. But then the other half, the mysteries, that can be anything. One of our most popular segments is listener stories, where people write in. We've had all kinds of stuff: hauntings, Hat Man, shadow people, the glimmer creature,
Black
flannel
eyed
man,
kids,
Black Eyed Kids.
black
I've
eyed
had a Black
kids.
Eyed Kids experience back in the 90s. I'll come on
I'm going to
sometime and
take
tell
my
you that.
earphones out if you start this on me, Steve, because they scare the living shit out of me. What are you getting ready to say,
I'm
man?
telling you, brother, that was the most frightened I've ever been. If you read my book, My Strange World, there's 2 times in there where I was genuinely scared. But the Black Eyed Kids trumped all that. I'll never write that story because I don't think I could ever tell it to capture what I was feeling. I have to write it. I can't tell it, but I can tell it. If you have me back on sometime, I'll tell you my Black Eyed Kids story. It'll take at least 20 minutes.
I'm speechless, man. I was really I don't want to hear the black eyed kid story, man. I mean, of course I would. I want to come bring you back. I have to bring you back. Yes, I will bring you back to talk about the black eyed kid story because when I told my producer about the black eyed kid, he said, "Huh, never heard of it. You think it's real?"
I'm here to tell you. Well, it's real as in I know what I saw. Whether that was actually 2 Black Eyed Kids, or whether that was some kind of a demon or a shapeshifter or a skinwalker or something. I don't know. I've wondered about that, that if that even really what it was, or that's what it was showing to me. I believe there's things out there that have that ability. If you've read Whitley Strieber's book, he remembers in some of his abduction experiences encountering owls. He saw owls. But then under hypnosis, it wasn't owls at all. It was alien grays. And that was either some kind of screen memory that they had put on him or something his brain had just kind of shorted itself out. And because he didn't know what these things were and to keep from just shattering his mind, he saw owls. So one way or the other, he saw owls, whether it was put there or whether it was his brain protecting itself from the trauma. And that may be, and I hadn't really thought about that till I heard somebody else retelling my story. And that was the first time that I ever felt anything for those little girls other than contempt and fear. I thought about that. I thought those poor little girls. What if it really was 2 children and there was some sort of demonic force or something controlling them? But I don't think they were human. I mean, they were human appearing, they were human sounding and acting to a degree, but I do not believe they were truly human. And now lately, I've been hearing stories about black-eyed adults. And you think about that. I had my black-eyed kids encounter in it was mid to late 90s. Some of the first ones I ever heard about were in the early 90s. Think about that. My daughter was born in 1990. She's 32 years old now. So if these were kids, the black-eyed kids, if they grow up like normal human kids, they're in their 40s now. So is that where these black-eyed kids are coming, or black-eyed adults are coming from? Or is it a whole different type of thing there, so to speak? Something to think about when you're trying to go to sleep tonight.
Okay, I want you to go. Okay, I want you. I need you to stop. But since we're just really okay, are the black eyed God? Are the black eyed kids? Could they possibly be somehow or another affiliated with the Men in Black?
I think so. I think there's a connection there. Because if you think about it, you had the men in black. They would show up. They would be wearing nice suits, but looked like they had just stepped out of a catalog. They drove nice cars, which were old but looked brand new, looked showroom fresh, even though they were decades old. They talked oddly and used phrases, or just the way they spoke didn't make any sense, kind of intimidated witnesses. Well, if you think about that, if there was something or someone or whatever out there sending something out to talk to people, they might think, well, we'll put men in suits. People love, a sharp dressed man in a nice car, but it was the wrong kind of suit and the wrong kind of car, and it scared people. Well, then it's like, back to the drawing board. Let's send some kids out there. Everybody loves kids. They'll talk to kids. They'll let kids into their house. But then the kids show up, they're creepy, they dress strange, they talk funny, they've got just empty blackness there where their eyes should be. So that didn't work. Then you look, actually predating the black eyed kids, you had the first phantom clown appearances in America, in Boston, in I think sometime in the 70s. Lauren Coleman wrote about it in his book, Mysterious America. Oh, clowns. We'll send clowns. Everybody loved clowns.
No.
But these weren't funny clowns. These were creepy clowns that came out of the woods and chased people. It's like they just can't get it right. But I tell you, if they ever send black-eyed bikini models with rock albums and pizza, that's probably what happened to me. I let them in.
Well, that would be where they could find both of us. Okay, that's where I'm going to tell you right now. I don't want to, but someone's got to go look out for you. I'm going to be your wingman. Okay,
That
I'm
works, buddy.
I'm just going to tell you if that's what happens. Hey, somebody's got to report it. That's
But
what
see,
Uncle
I'm
Jimmy
being
does.
facetious there. But you think about it, is there something out there that people have let in? I've only heard one real convincing story, compelling story about a lady that did let the black eyed kids in. Her husband passed away shortly thereafter of some strange form of cancer, and was bleeding from like his orifices and things. And then she got sick, and I don't even know if she's still alive. I need to research that a little farther. I haven't heard anything in a while. That's the only person I've ever heard of that let him in, and then all these tragedies and bad things befell him. But is there something out there that does get in? And that's why, I mean, there are people that are missing from their homes and stuff too. And in the city, it's not just in the woods. Those are some of the strangest ones, but people go missing all the time.
All right, listen here. I'm going to tell you what I was getting ready to say to you, but I just have to stop because I was getting ready to say, you talk about the missing black-eyed kids, but one of the things we don't talk about, or maybe you don't know. Have you ever heard about the green kids that just appeared out of nowhere?
Yeah, we have a video. We started. I had a thought the other day, decided to mix it up. Sandy's my head writer. Like I said, she's my traveling companion and stuff. And I said, we do all these strange disappearances. What about people that have appeared out of nowhere? We've got two videos up on that now, and a third in the works. The Green Children of Woolpit. That's in, I
Two
think,
green children. People think, oh, you're just being funny.
no. And I mean, there was people that observed them
They
and talked to
lived.
them.
They lived to be grown, didn't they, Steve? They wasn't
The
like they
boy
just
died.
popped.
The people, the family that took him in, they baptized him, and the little boy died shortly thereafter. That's kind of a weird
Yeah,
circumstance,
that,
I
that
think.
tells you something right there.
Yeah, but the little girl did live to into adulthood, and she married a man who had some royal affiliation or something like that. She'd been a housekeeper and things. But yeah, when they first found them, their skin was green. They wouldn't eat anything except raw fava beans, and they had no recollection of how they ended up in the pit, and they claimed to come from a land where the sun never shined, called St. Martin's Land. And
Sounds like the land
eventually
that's up
they did
under
lose their
Earth.
color. They did learn English. That they spoke a language that nobody had ever heard of. So now there was a theory that they had wandered into a cave system somewhere else and then popped out in this pit in Woolpit where that was. But that's kind of far fetched if you ask me. That's not going to turn your skin green. I don't think.
That listen. Okay. All right. I'm not going to ask you any more questions, Mr. Stockton. Thank you, but I will tell you this: the next time you come back, I will tell you about the time that I thoroughly, and that I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and this is the first time I'm saying this. I'm going to tell you about the time that I thoroughly believed that I was abducted by something. And the reason I say that I believe that my wife and I at the time, we were Wilma and Barney before, well, after their time. But the reason I say that is because we were actually heading, it was my wedding day. It was our anniversary. We were heading to the Ozarks. The Ozarks
Yeah.
is 4 hours from Kansas City, where I live. It's literally a 3 hour drive all the way Boonesville. You get right there, you make a right. It's simple directions. You can't go wrong. You get
Hmm.
there on Osage Beach, you make a right. It's 30 minutes from there. It was 6, 7 o'clock at that time. I made it there about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
When I was supposed to make the right. I remember I was supposed to make the right. And I suddenly was like, damn, I'm lost. And so I had to stop and ask the people, hey, I need to use your phone. Where are we at? Because I wanted to call the hotel, like, hey, and they're like, you're in Arkansas, buddy. I didn't find out until a few months ago. I decided to trace how far Arkansas was from, and actually, if you go the other way, it actually does go to Arkansas, but that's like some hours away.
Yeah. Things happen like that. I had some missing time when I was a teenager. I'll tell you about that in the future. Mine was only a few hours. I was on a bicycle, but there was a guy with me on a bicycle too. We both experienced it. Um, so I'll save that for a future episode
Okay,
if you'd
and
like.
so guess what? You know what I think comes with all of this when you see all of these things?
What's
Makes
that?
your hair turn white.
I'm right there with you, brother.
Mr. Stockton, thank you so much. I want to tell all of you all, listen, we covered a plethora of things today. Go to Steve Stockton. Just go to YouTube, punch Steve Stockton, and you can get all of his stories, all of these things. Is there anything else you want to someplace else they can find you?
Oh man, I've done a lot of shows, but the main channel there is Missing Persons Mysteries, just like the logo on my hat here.
Yes,
I
sir.
do have a personal channel called 13 Past Midnight. I get into little spookier stuff over there, stuff
I
that
don't want to
doesn't
be on
really
that show.
fit on the
I don't
Missing
want to be on that show.
Persons channel. But that's the best place to find me. My books are on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. My publisher likes for me to say that. They're in books in print. You can order them anywhere.
There you go. Listen, I think it'll be 1797 well spent. Honestly,
Yeah, and that's
um,
for all three. That's for all three in the Kindle edition. That's a bundle there, and that is a good deal.
that's a great deal. Listen, Mr. Stockton, thank you so much for joining me. I'm
Uncle Jimmy
word.
said, "You sir are a legend, and the pleasure and the honor is all mine, sir."
Listen, by the way, before I forget, one of my phrase that I'm trying to, I'm not as well as you. I say, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we're
That's a good one.
absent one from the other. But I love yours. What's your closing phrase? I know what it is.
Uh,
Be
I
good
think I
to
know the one you're going.
yourself.
Be good to
Be
yourselves
good to
and each
yourself.
other. Stay safe out there. As for me, I'll see you a little further on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you so much, sir.
I didn't know which part you're pointing toward. I was
That's
just going to do
that's what
the
I
a
wanted
little
because
further
you know
down the
what?
trail, but you wanted the whole thing there, and I'm happy to
Wait a minute,
do it.
but that's all it's about. Isn't that all it's about? Isn't
It
that's
is.
all it's about?
It's
Be
connecting with
good to
people.
yourselves as
That's
well as
why
each other.
I open every show, hello friends. And I mean that. Every person that listens to me said there was 2.7 million of them in the last month. Every one of those people is my friend. I pray for those people. My heart goes out to those people. Whatever you want, you need, I want to help you get it. I want to help you get there. Said I get a lot of compliments on my voice. People talk about how calming and pleasant it is. Personally, be honest with you, I've never liked the way I sounded. And when I record it and play it back, I'm like, I sound like that. But people dig it. I have a lot of listeners that have fibromyalgia, PTSD, insomnia, chronic pain. Got one person that listens to me while she goes for her daily dialysis treatments. There's some people out there that are hurting that need something. They need some calm. In this turbulent world that we live in, if I can be that voice of calm and peace, even though I'm telling you stories to scare your socks off, I'm happy to do it. God's given me a gift, and then I give it back to people. My gift is my voice.
And if honestly, the only thing that I'm truly trying to do, that I want to do in this show is just try to give a little bit. Just try to, if I can just one person just appreciate, if I can just make you just smile, if I can just make you smile a little bit. And if I could just tell you, I don't even know if we're still recording or not, but for you to say that it was just an accident, you have no idea My producer and I were talking. I'm trying to tell him, man, I'm done. I'm telling him, like, we can't. I'm done. I'm going to dump my kids off with their mama. I'm done. Take this show. I'm done. And somehow or another, the phone got disconnected. And I told him, kiss my butt. I went upstairs and started making breakfast for my son. And next thing I know, look at my phone. He's like, we got a guest.
And again, that was divine intervention. Like I said, sometimes I'll go weeks, and not look at that Twitter account. If anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, it's at Strange and Odd. That's my personal Twitter page. And I said I don't do much on there anymore. I've got several thousand followers and things, but I'm more active on Facebook. You can find me on there, Steve Stockton 81. That's number 81. That's also my email address, stevestockton81@gmail.com. Message me there. I love to hear from fans if people's got stories to share or anything. But yeah, I just happened to go into my Twitter account. There was something else that I saw that I wanted to read about, and down there in the messages, it had that little blue light, and it said, "You have a message from somebody that
From
you
Uncle
apparently
Jimmy.
followed me, and I hadn't followed you back yet." It said somebody wants to contact you on Twitter. I open it up, boom, it's Uncle Jimmy, Jimmy Dodds, and I'm like, no. And then I looked at the date real quick. I thought, how old is this? You know, I probably upset the man, pissed him off, and he's going to think I ghosted him. It was just a couple of hours. I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord.
No, that's
And I
it.
just, as fast as I could, I hit you back and said, yes, sir, I'm available. But
And
that's
thank you so
that's the way
much.
things. That's the way you know things are meant to be, man. There ain't no coincidences. That's
You know what a coincidence is, right?
what's
A
that?
coincidence is simply God's way of choosing to remain anonymous. And I want to end this
I
interview just
love
like
that.
that. Just like that. It's God's way of choosing to remain anonymous. Steve, thank you so much. I love you, brother. And you have to come back and tell me that scary ass black eyed
I
kid
will.
story.
I will. But let me
Thank you
tell you,
so
let me
much.
warn you, the times that I have told it before, strange things happen. Usually to me, but
Okay,
it might
now
happen to you too.
see, wait a minute.
Just
I'm not
have to
there
give
again.
you the little
I'm not there
caveat
yet,
just in
Steve.
case. I don't want you to get
Listen,
blindsided.
notice I didn't say, oh, go ahead, tell me a little bit.
But
And
when you're
people, okay,
ready,
hold it.
I'll come
Listen to
back
me,
and tell
hold it,
you.
hold it.
But see, give you a
Listen,
heads up. You
people.
can get your crystals ready, get your sage, your holy water, whatever you want us
Hell
to
no.
do.
People, listen to me. Black eyed kid stories is some scary stories.